I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Minakaims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
Back again already here on the Patriots Daily Podcast. It's been Draft Central, so it hasn't been True Pats Daily, even though it's basically the same thing, just for branding purposes. But regardless, we're back after a long weekend. Finally get a little over 24 hours rest between podcasts, but it's football season. It never ends. So myself and Tayler Kyles are here back on Patriots Daily, powered by Prize Picks and Game Time, and also a proud member of the CLNS Media Network. And what we're going to do is sift through everything the Patriots did this weekend, plus all of the UDFAs they've signed, plus use some players that they cut, which we'll get to in a minute, to try and project out how the Patriots' 53-man roster could look come the end of August. Now, it is only April 28th, so that's why we are deeming this a way too early 53-man roster projection. You could probably put way too early, but again, not much of a prediction exercise as much of it is trying to get to know the roster and where things could potentially shake out, who's vying for spots, etc. So before we get into those 6 players cut, Tayler, I must ask, how are you after a long draft weekend?
I haven't really stopped yet, to be honest. So
Okay.
I'm still getting there. But again, it was a fun weekend. I really like the players they got, especially the undrafted free agents. I think they kind of cleaned up. So we're chugging through, but that's what we're not used to over here.
Yeah, of course. And we'll get to that. I'm glad you mentioned the UDFAs because there are a couple that, could make a real push for this roster when it's all said and done with a solid spring and summer. So we'll get to those guys in just a second. But first, the Patriots did just cut 6 players, which stinks, but it actually helps us kind of sift through this roster a little bit more because it makes our life easier to figure out who may make it and who may not. And after signing their UDFA class, they were way over the limit. So they cut their roster back down to 90 players. Now, Mark Daniels actually tweeted he thought they were at 91. There might be an international player exemption in here. I don't exactly know because Jotham Russell is no longer on the team. But long story short, they cut themselves down to the 90-ish threshold where they're supposed to be at. And they have released offensive lineman Jake Andrews, defensive lineman Marcus Harris, wide receiver Jaquay Jackson, linebacker Titus Leo, safety Mark Perry, and tight end / fullback, we thought, Giovanni Ricci. So, Tayler, a lot of those names are fringe practice squad, potential starters. One notable one in Jake Andrews, who was a former 4th-round pick. But anything stand out to you as far as this group? We don't need to go through every single guy, but were you shocked by any of these moves the Patriots had to make today?
Not really, to be honest. To be frank, one that I kind of expected was Giovanni Ricci, and that was only because of my depth chart. I'm like, I think that Lampy is the best fullback on this roster, and I don't really see where Ricci even fills a role. Like, if you have a fullback, might as well just have him play every snap because it's not like they play that much anyway. Obviously, you want a camp body as well, but I know they invited somebody to the rookie camp. Dwayne, something, I forget his last name, but yeah. So Ricci, I kind of figured was going to happen.
Dwayne Martin was the name.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Dwayne Martin, yeah.
Jake Andrews was probably the one that was kind of surprising just because obviously he was a former draft pick.
Right.
Just unfortunate with injuries last season. That was really the only reason he wasn't in the mix when the Patriots desperately needed center help. And then as a rookie, he only really played a little bit in the last couple games. So new regime, not surprising that he's gone, but he's probably the most notable name on that list. Jaquay Jackson stuck around. I never honestly understood why exactly. Like, he had a couple nice catches late in the preseason, but it wasn't anything that crazy. And I know he had some decent practices late in the year, but I didn't think he was someone that was definitely gonna be a dark horse or anything like that.
Sure,
so
yeah.
no real surprises on this list, no. But a lot of it, I think, is because of the guys that they added in the undrafted free agency. I feel like took a lot of those spots, or at least shored up those positions.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the only one really was, again, like we said, is Jake Andrews. Not that it's a shock by any means. He hasn't been able to stay on the field and stay healthy enough to really earn. I don't want to say not earn the right to compete, but earn the right to compete. I mean, he hasn't shown much in that, ability to stay healthy and then also to kind of warrant a spot here. So, I mean, they drafted 3 linemen, one of which was an interior offensive lineman. And then they added 2 more in undrafted free agency. So it's kind of slim pickings there. And then the only one that's kind of it kind of stinks is, Giovanni Ricci, because they just signed him this offseason, but that was before they made all these moves. I think it was before they even hired Josh McDaniels, if I'm not mistaken. So I could be wrong on that front, but they, like you said, they add fullbacks. They kind of flush out the tight end / fullback position here, and he's just on the outside looking in. So no real surprises. But on that note, I say we get right into it and project position by position here of the Patriots roster. We will start with quarterback. Probably the easiest one. The Patriots have 3 rostered quarterbacks right now after the Joe Milton trade in Josh Dobbs, Drake May, and undrafted rookie free agent Ben Woolridge. 2, right? Drake May, Josh Dobbs, Ben Woolridge gets cut pretty easy. Do you have any gripes with that one, or are we kind of just ready to move on?
I don't at all. I did see some film of Woolridge that was pretty interesting. I feel like he's actually one of those quarterbacks who makes the late preseason and final preseason games a little more watchable because he's pretty competent. I don't think he's going to make this roster, but we figured that at least I was saying, I didn't think they were going to spend a pick. Like adding another quarterback always made sense. I just thought they were going to sign one because they had so many holes to fill. We saw they even used special teams spots in the draft for long snapper and kicker. So I thought they had too many needs to go quarterback, but it made perfect sense to sign one undrafted. But yeah, Drake May and Josh Dobbs. Josh Dobbs was told when he signed his contract he was going to be QB2. I don't see that changing or them keeping Woolridge unless he has a really good preseason to the point where they think they really should keep and develop him. But I don't think they want to threaten Drake May either. So, I feel like they'll keep that room thin if they can.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's we could talk quarterback all day. People love Drake May, but at the end of the day, it's May, it's Dobbs, and Woolridge, and maybe they bring in another camp arm at some point if someone's kind of familiar, just to literally be that camp arm. I don't see Woolridge pushing Josh Dobbs to the second string by any means. I would say that room is locked up. So let's move on to running back, and I'll give you the floor, but just to kind of outline it for everyone at home, the Patriots have 5 rostered running backs as things currently stand. It's Antonio Gibson, Terrell Jennings, Travion Henderson, who's a rookie, Lan Larison, who is a rookie as well, and then Ramondre Stevenson, of course. So how do you see the room flushing out? Who do you think makes it, and who do you think doesn't?
I actually round the fullbacks in there as well. So
okay, I had them with tight ends, but that's the same thing essentially. So
that's fair. Yeah, I'll lump them in for running back just for the sake.
We'll do it this way.
I know the Patriots in the past actually. I should have done it your way because they do lump the fullbacks in.
It's the same thing. We'll end up running into this with the linebacker edge defensive line thing anyway. It's all the same. But let's how do you want to do it? Running backs here, or do you want to do fullbacks here? Or do you
I'll put them in with tight ends.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, smart. Okay. So running backs, I kept 4. Ramondre Stevenson, obviously, but as number 2, I have Travion Henderson, and that's because one, I think that he's a more well-rounded player. I think I like his vision a lot more than I like Gibson's, where they both look for cutback lanes, but I think Travion is more willing to go with the flow of the play in the initial direction, whereas Gibby, I feel like at times tries to force things a little bit. And there were times last year looking at some of the decisions he made where I wasn't really sure why he made them. Also in pass protection and ball security, I would make Travion the first back on here, but I still do think that Ramondre is a quality workhorse back, and I think he will be the top guy in this new regime. Hey, if the fumbling pops up as an issue, maybe Travion becomes the top guy, but either way, I don't think there's going to be a true workhorse in this room. That's another reason I have 4 guys. So Travion is number 2, Ramondre is the number 1, Antonio Gibson as the number 3. But I really do think he'll still have a significant role unless one of these young guys beats him out for a spot altogether. I love the fact that he can obviously split out of the backfield, line up wide, line up in the slot. Has been a wide receiver, so he gives you all that. He's also a very physical runner and a tough guy to tackle, one of the most efficient tackle breakers last year. So I do think he makes the roster, but that could change. Last guy I have is Lan Larison. He may be my favorite undrafted free agent. Just all you have to do is look at his highlights for like 30 seconds and you realize very quickly the Patriots don't have anybody on the roster outside of maybe a Henderson or like a Kyle Williams who has this level of juice and just like eye-popping ability, where Larison, I was listening to a scouting report, he's great in pass protection. The hands on this guy are obscene. Like, he's making catches I haven't seen people on the Patriots roster make, and he's a good running back. Reminds me of just Danny Woodhead if he ate the Mario mushroom. So those are my 4 guys, but Lan Larison, I think, is going to sneakily have a significant role in this room. I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes Antonio Gibson off the roster altogether, but I do think they're going to want to keep 4. So because in the past, they've had that legitimate committee. So 4, but, eye out on Antonio Gibson once again. I have a feeling that his skill set may overlap with a couple of the young guys.
Yeah, this Land Larison is quickly making an impression on me anyway. Just looking through some of his, frankly, his highlights, and also on our thumbnail, I noticed that it put the picture of him on, and he's wearing the 808 face mask, the same face mask I wore in college. The Marcus Mariota, the Baker Mayfield. Kid's automatically a stud if he's going to rock the 808 in Foxboro. So no, I love it. I think I like the Danny Woodhead comp from you, and I also like keeping 4 running backs in this Josh McDaniels system. It makes almost too much sense for this guy to be able to sneak on the roster. So I had the same exact 4 running backs. Unfortunately, Terrell Jennings just doesn't make the cut. But if I say that,
maybe practice squad.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's what most of these guys, when you bring them in and we'll go back and forth and we'll say this guy should be on, that guy should be on. A lot of them will end up rounding it out and coming back on practice squad wise anyway. But 53-man roster wise, I think Jennings just it doesn't make the cut here. I find it interesting that you mentioned as you tier them that you have Larison over Gibson at this point. I don't know whether I necessarily agree or not.
Like Larison is my 4.
Yeah, okay.
But I do think he's someone who could push Antonio Gibson off the roster.
Okay, that's a better way of putting it. And frankly, the way you did put it, and I kind of twisted your words there. But regardless, it's like, yeah, we're gonna cut this and just go. Taylor has Gibson off his roster and put that out there into the ether. But no,
do it. Don't tempt him.
No, you're right though. If one of them were to get cut, I guess he could potentially push him, because if they did only want to keep 3, there's the rookie aspect, there's the fresh legs aspect, and Gibson was great last year. Don't get me wrong, but Larison was a this regime pick, and Gibson was a last regime signing. So on that note, I'm with you. Antonio Gibson, Travion Henderson, Lane Larison, Ramondre Stevenson make the Patriots running back room. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Even more interesting is wide receivers. I have 6 wide receivers on my roster, and I have Stephon Diggs listed as PUP to start things off.
Same.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 off the roster, and that includes Javon Baker, Kayshon Boutte as well, off the roster. So I'll give you mine and let me know what you think. Kendrick Bourne, Efton Chisholm makes the roster. Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, Jalen Polk, and Kyle Williams are my 6. Kendrick Bourne would probably be the odd one out here. I guess Chisholm too, realistically. I mean, I would like to see him on the team. He kind of fits the mold of what they're looking for, but I just wonder if that's another guy that you can round out practice squad wise, like we talked about in a Terrell Jennings. But again, if he makes an impression throughout the summer, I could see him sticking on. Kendrick Bourne is the other one, as I said, who, yes, he has the experience with Josh McDaniels, but he's also older. He's coming off year 2 of an injury, which has kind of helped some people, but also just means he's another year older. So I could see that being kind of a question mark. But I think Douglas, Mac Hollins, Jalen Polk, Kyle Williams are all but locks, and then Stephon Diggs also kind of rounds it out eventually off of PUP. But what's your kind of look at this roster here? Who do you think makes it? Who do you think doesn't?
I think our lists are the same. I have Mac Hollins just because I think that as he's going to be the veteran really in that receiver room outside of Kendrick Bourne, and him having been a Josh McDaniels guy who's also known as more of an intense competitor, whereas Kendrick Bourne is more of the lighthearted guy. I do think that he and Drake are going to develop a rapport over the summer with Diggs out. So I think he makes it. Obviously, Demario Douglas, one of the better separators, the best really separator on the roster. I mentioned yesterday I thought Efton Chisholm could maybe push him for a spot. Yeah. But I actually heard, I believe it was Tom Curran mentioned that Josh actually really likes Pop and thinks he could be a 100-target guy. Now, Pop's never been that in the NFL. Like, he's never really been the go-to target, and he had the concussions his rookie season, at least one concussion. And that was really what worried me when it came to him being that kind of target, because the more you feed him, he's going to end up over the middle at some point. I'm hesitant about him taking those kinds of hits. And we've seen some struggles when it comes to like the scramble drills sometimes, the zone coverage. So I was very curious how he was going to fit in Josh's offense. But if Josh likes him, that's very exciting, because obviously Pop's got a lot of talent. It just feels like the past 2 years it hasn't been fully capitalized on, whether it was because of scheme or whether it was because of the quarterbacks. So really looking forward to this year if Demario Douglas really is someone that Josh McDaniels likes. Then Kyle Williams, of course, he's a lock, finally brings a vertical element to this offense and some speed after the catch as well. Kendrick Bourne, the fact that he's been in the Josh McDaniels offense, had more success in that offense than he has anywhere outside or with any other coach outside of a Kyle Shanahan. I do think he's going to be the one where once Stephon Diggs comes back, you start saying, okay, is somebody looking for a trade? Like somebody desperately need a receiver? Maybe you move Kendrick Bourne just at this point, like at his age with his contract. It doesn't make sense for them to keep him really past this season, especially if young guys do start to step up. Behind him, I've got Jalen Polk. And if Polk plays well, then yeah, Kendrick Bourne is going to be off the roster. Obviously, he did not do well last year, but we heard from Alex Katzen. This is a guy who really does need confidence to succeed, like a lot of players, right? Like receivers are similar to cornerbacks where you're on an island so much. Sometimes it is the bravado that gets you through. They added Kyle Williams, who has some more mental toughness, and a guy who's tried and true and all those things like that. But hopefully Jalen Polk, with this new offense that I know that he's taken pretty well to, can resurrect himself and have a better season after just what it was historically bad last year, but his situation was historically shitty. So we got to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt. And then Efton Chisholm, guy who creates early separation. He really stood out for people at the Shrine Bowl. We're going to have someone from the Shrine Bowl actually on the show at some point this week, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. But I think he's going to be someone that Josh really likes. Is again, a separator. No, he's not a burner. Josh doesn't care. He's never needed burners to succeed. And now that you have Kyle Williams adding that vertical element, I think that Efton Chisholm as a guy who could be a slot, maybe move Z option is really intriguing for this roster. I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't end up making the 53.
Interesting. So I was just going to ask you that. I was going to say, tell me a little bit more about him before you already did kind of tell me a little bit more about him. But you do think that I don't want to say lock. Lock is unfair, especially for any UDFA. But you say you'd be relatively surprised if he's not on the team.
Yes, because I think with him and like Lan Larison, it's, even on my depth chart, those guys are rated higher than you'd expect for undrafted guys. Sure. The conversation can be, why would you do that? Right? Like they were undrafted for a reason. Well, they're from lower levels of competition. A lot of the time teams just don't want to take a risk on those kind of guys. Like they were very, very like Larison dominated his level of competition.
That kid's a stud.
Really good. Exactly. But for me, it's just looking at them, right? Like seeing them against competition, like Efton Chisholm at the Shrine Bowl, the way he was beating like some pretty good players, that just stands out. And it's something I think they're going to want to develop. The undrafted free agent streak is obviously important. I think they'll have so many guys that they're not going to have to like slide someone in. They could have like 5 undrafted players on the roster. But again, Efton Chisholm, I just think is someone who fits the skill set so well. Also has really good hands. It's not just the separation. Like he's got a bigger body than a Demario Douglas. If he were to factor into the slot, I think he'd be a better blocker. And I just think also Josh likes different body types to be able to throw different skill sets out there. And I think that Chisholm would give you something a little different in that slot receiver role. So also he's someone I know had interest from other teams. I think part of the reason he went undrafted was because he wanted to make as much money as he could. And knowing if you get drafted in the 5th to 7th round, I'm not sure if it's 5th exactly, but you can usually make more money if you go undrafted and can actually negotiate your own contract. So Chisholm seems like one of those guys that I think the league liked. And the Patriots were just lucky enough to get him. So again, I think that people need to be very familiar with this guy.
All right. We will move on to the rest of the offense in just a second. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Prize Picks. We'll be right back. Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. And all you got to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. And right now, you can cash in on the basketball playoffs. So do not miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court into your Prize Picks lineups, whether it's points, rebounds, assists, or anything. Make sure to just pick more or less, and you get up to 2,000 times your cash. You think LeBron James will get more than 24 points? Think Giannis will score more than 35? Cook up those hot takes with your friends and win real money this basketball season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. And all you got to do is sign up today, download the app, and use code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Did that just click for you or no? Did that
it always does. I'm ready for it now. I don't let it surprise me.
The end sounded funny for some reason, but yeah, head over to Prize Picks. Use that code CLNS. You get $50 instantly after you play $5. Celtics take a 3-1 series lead over the Orlando Magic last night, and you can win some cash if you keep playing those Prize Picks lineups. Celtics Magic return Wednesday night, tomorrow night at TD Garden. So if you want to get on the action, use that code CLNS for $50 instantly after you play $5. All right, we've done quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, Taylor. Now let's talk tight ends / fullbacks. It seems like the fullback is back with the New England Patriots and Josh McDaniels here. But make that a reality here for me. What do you got for the fullbacks and tight ends making the Patriots roster?
Yeah, Hunter Henry's a lock, of course, one of those reliable players on the entire team, a captain, a very valuable member of not only the locker room, but also just the team as well. Austin Hooper was so good last year. He has a chemistry with Drake May. They have some downfield ability with Mays being able to put the ball wherever he wants, and Hooper being a very reliable, big target. So I think those are your 1 and 2. Austin Hooper in 2 tight end sets will be the Y, with Hunter Henry being the guy who moves around the formation and lines up off the ball. And then in the 3 receiver sets, then Hunter Henry will be that Y receiver, or I'm sorry, that Y tight end, inline tight end. Third spot's tough. Actually, third spot, I'll just say Brock Lampy. Like, I think he's going to have a spot on this roster, especially with Giovanni Ricci no longer being on here. I think he's a guy who's as close to a lock as I think you could be as an undrafted free agent who I'm going to be very curious to see what all the contracts look like and where the money stacks up. It's not like you need to pay a fullback necessarily all that much, but from what I've read, he sounds like a guy who's a pro-ready type of fullback, and we know Josh McDaniels likes those kinds of guys because they open up the run game so much. Like the ability to just send them either front side, back side, use them as a distraction, use them straight ahead as a lead blocker. It just opens up the playbook a lot when you have a guy like Jared Wilson at center. We'll get to later, but it's going to be really fun what they're able to do on the ground game. So Brock Lampy is going to stick on as a fullback and also a guy who can play that F role as an off-ball tight end. And then the final tight end spot, C.J. Dupree and G. Scott Jr. I like both. G. Scott is more of an athletic type, like a receiver. As much as I want to pick him because I think he's probably got the most upside, I have Dupree because, one, he was a guy that was projected to go in the 5th to 6th round. Also, he's a good blocker who's also an athletic tight end. Those are the kind of guys that you gamble on, whereas G. Scott, I think, is more of a true F move type of tight end. He was a former receiver, so he's really more of a joker type, which I think it's not like Hunter Henry is going to be around forever. I hope that, honestly, they can keep 5 tight ends, but that just does not sound realistic because you need receivers. So I think it's going to end up being Dupree, but I would not be surprised if I'm wrong. And again, if they think that they need it and they just want to develop a couple of young guys, knowing that they have 2 older tight ends on the roster, one who's only on a 1-year deal, I wouldn't be shocked if both those young guys end up sneaking on, or at least like one guy being on the practice squad if they can manage it.
We are agreeing through 4 positions thus far because I have those exact same 4 guys. Tough to take Jaheim Bell off, but I think the prospect, the idea of Jaheim Bell is better than the reality at this point, especially into a second offensive coordinator in 2 years and just what they've brought in, into the room with Dupree and then G. Scott Jr. as well. And yeah, I looked at both of those guys, but I thought Dupree had the best chance. I like the pedigree with Alabama. He's played big time football for a long time. So played at Maryland as well, not as big time, but being a Bama guy, makes sense. He can make a roster here. And just the fact that he could have been a draft pick too. You see him in the free agent market, you give him a bag of cash and say, come make our football team. I think he can. As far as 5 tight ends versus 4, I think it would probably be more realistic or more likely for them to just keep 2 rather than go to 4. No, not counting the fullback. Like, I think it would be more likely that it's just Hunter or Hooper, Henry, and then the fullback rather than keeping the both undrafted rookies and just kind of resetting it after next year. It's tough to squeeze them onto the roster. I know that's the thing.
Go in with 2 tight ends who are 30. That doesn't sound smart.
And only them I know, but then it's like you look at you look at the wide receiver room, you look at the offensive lineman you might want to keep. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's ultimately going to be 3. I do think they're going to get one of these UDFAs on the roster. It's funny, we talk about this team not having any UDFAs, or maybe they got to keep the streak. And so far, we each have Larison, Chisholm, and Dupree, 3 UDFAs on the roster. But no, I do think it'll be those 4 for now. We'll see how it obviously plays out. It's way too early for a reason. But of those younger guys, I have Dupree making it. Jack Westover, Jaheim Bell, G. Scott, unfortunately, do not make the cut. All right, here's where it also gets interesting is offensive line. I'll hand it to you to kind of parse it out before I talk about who I have on or who I think might not make it. because they added 5 rookies, 3 draft picks, 2 UDFAs into the mix, along with some guys that they also re-signed this offseason. So how many and which offensive linemen do you have making the roster?
I've got 8 offensive linemen, and in years past, I've done like 9. I'm just hoping this is the year where they're not so desperate that they need to keep 9. Because in years past, they've had at least one spot on the offensive line where they didn't know how exactly it was going to look, so they kind of had to stockpile bodies. Like when they traded for Vidarian Lowe, and who else did they trade for?
The kid from Tyrone Wheatley
Jr. Yeah. So hopefully you don't have any more of those situations. So I've got the young guys are pretty much locks. Like Marcus Bryant isn't exactly a lock, but he's a developmental prospect I think they really like.
I'm so curious who you have off right now if you have Marcus Bryant on and 2 less than me. This is fun. Keep going.
Okay,
sorry.
So I've got Will Campbell, Jared Wilson, Marcus Bryant, Mike Nwenu, of course. I've got Layden Robinson. I have Garrett Bradbury making it. I just think he would have to be bad. I think he'd have to be bad flat out to not make the roster because he is a veteran. I just think it's a level of stability and sureness that they don't have up front, especially at that center position. Even if Jared Wilson is good, and he beats him out, I think there's a better chance that Jared Wilson ends up playing left guard. But hopefully Layden Robinson plays well enough that, it forces the young guys to play. And then I've got Caden Wallace making it as well as a guy who can play guard or ideally either tackle spot. And I just think the versatility and the youth that you have kind of makes it unnecessary to keep 9 guys, because ideally the starters are really the old heads on your roster. And then the younger guys are the ones that would be able to maybe pick up some of the or the young guys are the ones who'd be able to slide in and get the experience if someone were to go down. And then, other than tackle, of course, most of those spots, like if you need an interior spot, you can pick someone up for a week or two. And if it was the entire season, obviously, I'm not putting that in the air too early. So I've got 8 total: Nwenu, Campbell, Wilson, Robinson, Moses, Bradbury, Bryant, and Wallace.
So the 2 I have on one is Cole Strange. I think he still has a chance to make it as a swing guy along the interior. And the other one is your boy, Vidarian Lowe. I have him on the roster right now for tackle depth. It's funny. You would think it would be flipped. How hard was it for you to have Vidarian Lowe off this roster, Taylor, and not make it?
Not really, because once they drafted Brian, I was like, oh, he's got to be gone, right? Because I already thought Caden was going to be their swing tackle. I didn't think that there was a spot. As much as I like Vidarian as the spot starter, if you've got a young guy, you'd rather give him the reps, ideally. But I just don't see with Brian and Wallace where Vidarian's spot is on this team.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's RIP the dream. But I think, and we'll see how the rest of it parses out. And now that we're kind of off schedule with, I have 2 more guys on right now. We'll see who I end up taking off that you have on. But I just think offensive line, it's so sacred's not the right word for this team, but it's so important for this team right now to protect Drake May. I think you throw all the options at the table, make sure something sticks, and then parse it out from there. But notably, both have off the roster guys like City So, Ben Brown, who essentially just gets squeezed out with the Jared Wilson pick, I'd say here. Jack Conley, the Boston College kid they signed as a UDFA. Trey Jacobs, Tyrese Robinson, and City So as well. We both have off the roster. And then Wes Schweitzer, too, who does a great deed given Will Campbell his number. And unfortunately, again, that's a depth camp, see what happens type of signing anyway. But both of us have him off the roster well, so I just don't see it. All right, that is our offense. Now, Taylor, let's head to the defensive side of the ball. We'll start with the defensive line. Before we get to it, I'm curious, where do you have a guy in Braden Swinson? Is he a edge rusher, defensive lineman? Is he in this category? Is he in his own? You don't have him in linebackers. You have him here.
Yeah, so I broke it up as defensive interior and edge defender. And for edge, I just considered it guys who never line up off the ball. So that was pretty much how I differentiated. I have 5 interior guys and I have 5 edge defenders, so 10 defensive linemen total.
Okay, sounds good. I have this is where it gets funky because I have 6 defensive linemen, 5 linebackers, but I have Chason and Harold Landry listed in the linebackers category. But let's just
make them defensive line.
Both of them making the defensive line.
That's how I think about it. Like if you're doing it's like how an interior defender, I don't consider Keon an interior defender because he spends so much time outside. It's like he's not a defensive tackle. Defensive tackles don't line up outside.
True. Okay.
Like, linebacker or an edge will almost never be off the ball. And if they are, it's only in certain packages. That's usually how I think.
Okay.
Like, would someone else in that position ever really line up in that other spot?
For the sake of discussion, we'll run it the way you have them separated, and I'll fill in the blanks as we go. So start with your interior defensive lineman. Who do you have on the roster?
Yep. So I've got Christian Barmore. Obviously, if he's healthy, he is the best player in that room by a decent margin. Milton Williams is right behind him, though. I have Barmore as a blue chip because he's just so physically imposing. Like, when he's on his game, there's literally nothing you can do to stop him because he's bigger than you, he's stronger than you, he's fast, and he's a nonstop motor. Milton Williams just isn't as big. That's really the only thing that keeps him from being a true blue chip, I think. But he is still an elite pass rusher. He's shown that he can be an elite run defender, needs to put it together. But I have him as a high-quality starter behind Barmore. Then I've got Joshua Farmer, of course, just drafted, a guy who worked with Clint McMillan. There's almost no chance that he doesn't make the roster. Also a guy who's very high character. He's trended up in his career. I'd like to see him not on the ground as much as I did on the tape that I watched from Florida State, but still definitely an intriguing developmental guy. Jeremiah Farm signed a 2-year deal. I'm not going to lie, past the first 3 for the interior, I don't feel very comfortable predicting any of these guys. I could see any of them, one guy winning and one guy being off. But Jeremiah Farm's ceiling, man, when he's on, he shows flashes that no other guy who you would consider really more of a depth piece brings. Like, when he's somehow slow off the ball, like it takes him a tick of a second to realize the ball's been snapped. And you can see he's like often the last one to get out of his stance, but he fires off so quickly that you see like centers think they've got the advantage and quickly are like, oh, no, I don't. This guy's already in the backfield. So Farms is a really talented player. I think could thrive in this more attacking front. The 5th spot's tough. I honestly, even right now, I have it written down as Jaquelin Roy / Khyiris Tonga. For the sake of this, I'm going to give it to my boy Jaquelin Roy. I really do think that he was kind of screwed by the injury he got late last year. He actually suffered a couple injuries that cut his season short, but he was very productive in his short stint, and I'd love to see what he can continue to do with better defensive line coaching, because as a nose tackle, I could see him being a long-term kind of fit for this defense. As more of a run stopper with Joshua Farms being more the guy who gives you some pass rush juice. Now, Khyiris Tonga just takes up so much space.
I know.
I think he's the kind of nose tackle they don't really have, where he's just squatty. But Jaquelin Roy still is powerful enough. And I think he's sturdy against those double teams and he can get off blocks. So again, 5 guys. I've got Christian Barmore, Milton Williams, and Joshua Farmer, Jeremiah Farms. And then as those like pure nose tackles, I think it's going to be Jaquelin Roy making the roster.
All right. Of those guys, I have 4 of them. I have Barmore, Farmer, Jeremiah Farms, and Milton Williams, of course. I have Roy and Tonga off, and I think that this was probably the hardest decision for me to make because you want more depth at that position. But I also, in this first kind of crack at it, rather the depth on the offensive line as opposed to the defensive line because of, the way they can kind of things there. But of those 2, I probably would lean Tonga making it just because of, like, frankly, who signed him versus who signed Roy. If like it's kind of a different, I mean, it's the same front office sort of, but it's also like it's a different head coach. It's a different front office outside of really LA Wolf and why can't I think of?
Well, similar front office. It's basically the same front office overall with injections of Vrabel.
Why can't I think of Matt Rowe? Matt Rowe would not come to my mind for some reason. But yeah, so that was the tough one for me, but I went with depth on the offensive line instead of the defensive line. All right, who do you have on the exterior defensive line here?
Harold Landry is a lock. They gave him a lot of money.
Yep.
They clearly like him a lot as a guy who sets the example in that room. Keon White, who outside linebackers coach Mike Smith said he's excited to work with. And also even Milton Williams was talking about how he's looking forward to working with Keon White. Actually, so Josh Farmer mentioned Barmore and he mentioned Williams, which makes sense, but he's going to learn about Keon White because Keon is an elite interior rusher. That's where most of, I think, his impact is going to be, but I'd love to see him take a step and really be equally as effective outside as he is inside. Because if he is, this defensive line is terrifying. Barmore and Williams are already very good on the inside, but if Keon can be a guy who's on the field with them, rather than needing it to be certain packages where you can put them all inside, that's just going to be a terrifying matchup of just explosiveness, versatility, violence. So Keon White, Caleb on Chason, similar to what I was saying yesterday, where this is a guy I think could be replaced by a younger player because he and Braden Swinson both former LSU Tigers, both those stand-up outside linebacker edge types in this 3-3 scheme where you're really relying on them to get after the passer. Even if they do have some upside as run stoppers, their real role is going to be as situational pass rushers behind Anthony Jennings, who I also have making it. So Harold Landry, Keon White, Caleb Chason, Braden Swinson. Again, Swinson could beat out Chason if they need some more spots, and Anthony Jennings, whose spot I don't think is safe necessarily because he doesn't have so much pass rush upside, which hurts him more in a 4-down front, but he is an elite run stopper, and I think he just does just enough in line games, like if he can knife into the backfield or be used on stunts, or he would still be effective as a pass rusher if you used him in that capacity.
Give me that list one more time.
So, sorry, Harold Landry.
No, that's fine.
Harold Landry, Keon White, Caleb Chason, Anthony Jennings, and Braden Swinson.
Okay. I missed Swinson for some reason. I thought you didn't have him there, so I was making sure that we were on the same page. I have the exact same 5 in Chason, Jennings, Landry, White, and Swinson. It wasn't really that difficult, frankly, for me to make any cuts here. It made too much sense. Who do you got?
There was one kind of tough cut, Elijah Ponder. I can't wait to really dive into his tape because I remember reading the scouting reports whenever I'd look at the later round edge guys.
Yeah.
This guy's got the kind of skill set you look for, and I've seen some clips where he's got, like, his burst off the line is legit, and I think he's got some bend to him as well. So if that's the kind of thing where if they decide, hey, like, Keon can be our starter over a Caleb Chason, and then maybe if you want a Swinson and like a Ponder to develop as those really scary twitched up edge rushers, I can see that, but I also think that it's hard to justify keeping 2 purely situational edge rushers, but we'll see how it works out because Ponder's a good player.
You mentioned him on our show yesterday as one of your sneaky likes. He's Cal Poly. Is that the one from?
Yes, sir.
Okay, interesting. All right, so we'll see if he has a good camp. It could potentially make a push. Now we move to the inside. What do you got for the linebackers / inside linebackers? Kind of rounding out that defensive front 7.
This one's kind of tough because I wanted to do 3, but I don't see them keeping 3 inside linebackers. And if they do, I think they would make some other additions. So I'm just going to admit that this is one I'm a little shaky on. Robert Spillane is a lock. Christian Ellis, after everything they did to retain him, is a lock. Jack Gibbons just does everything well in this system. He's been in it almost his entire career, except for last year when Vrabel was out of a job and he was still Gibbons was still under contract with Tennessee.
Yeah.
If like somebody were to get injured, he just seems like the kind of guy that could come in, won't make a lot of mistakes, isn't going to wow you if you put him up against elite athletes or put him in some compromising or in some difficult positions. He's going to look bad sometimes, and I'll just be very honest about that. But he really makes very few mental mistakes, which is more than you can say for a lot of the linebackers last year. Last spot is tough. I've got Monty Rice or Cam Riley. Monty Rice has played for the Titans in Mike Vrabel's system, so that's why I think I wouldn't have even had him really on the radar otherwise. But I think that does give him a leg up. Could also still be on the practice squad, though, so that's why I feel shaky about it. And then Cam Riley seems like another kind of run-stopping type. Again, I thought they would add a developmental linebacker, someone who could maybe take over for a Robert Spillane in the middle. Maybe they still add someone like maybe a Josh Simmons or something would be a really interesting hybrid kind of pick that I know Andre Weingarten, friend of the show, has brought up to me a couple times. But I don't feel confident in it, but I do think Spillane, Ellis, and Gibbons are not locks, but I'm confident they'll make it. Even maybe not Gibbons if someone outplays him. I just think he's got such a head start and is such a player that Vrabel really likes. And that 4th one, I don't really know. If they keep 3, I won't be surprised. But I think they'd at least need to look elsewhere because 3 linebackers is cutting it pretty close.
Yeah, so right now I have Ellis, Spillane. Gibbons is like on the fringe. But who you have off and who I also have off is one Galani Tvai. How does it happen? Does it get cut? Does it get traded? What's your projection on Galani Tvai here?
So he's still going to be around. It's such a weird situation because, like, I don't know that he's going to start for you, right? You have Spillane, you have Ellis. So, like, is he a backup in camp? If he's a backup, he gets traded. I don't think he makes it through camp. But also, who's going to trade for him? Like, if you can get like a couple picks, he's got good tape. Like, if I don't really know how it works, whether a team is like, hey, I don't think that's how it works. But if you want to find good tape on Galani Tvai, you can find it. If you want to find bad tape on Galani Tvai, you can also find it. So, linebacker's not one of those positions where teams are usually terribly desperate. But also, if you're talking about like a pick swap, a future 7th, whatever, get something for the guy because you never know what that could turn into. But yeah, I don't see him making the team. One, because I don't think he fits what they do in this defense, but also just, I mean, the personnel, the issues last year clearly weren't bad enough to get him cut this soon, but it feels like it just doesn't make sense to me. Sense. I don't know why he's still on the roster, to be honest.
I wonder. Imagine he was in that first wave of cuts today. That would have been quite the story. But no,
the show.
Yeah, he's still here. He's still around. We'll see what happens. Myself and Tayler both have Tvai off the roster as of today. We'll get to the defensive backfield. We'll get to some specialists in just a second. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Game Time. We'll be right back. Patriots Daily is powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to the NBA playoffs, which is exactly what I did last week to get into Celtics versus Magic at TD Garden, and the Game Time app made that experience that much easier. They make getting tickets faster, easier, even for these hard-to-get playoff seats, but the prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. So it's the best way to score last-minute deals to get to your favorite team's games. Those last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off when you buy last-minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. The app also has zone deals, which saves you even more when choosing a section and lets Game Time choose the seats for you. They have all-in pricing, a feature that shows you exactly what you're going to have to pay without any surprise fees at checkout. And they also have panoramic seat views right in the app, so you can see exactly what you're going to see when you get to the game. So make sure to take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. That is Game Time. They changed the copy on us, Tayler, so no more. What time is it? I'll still ask you, what time is it?
Game Time.
It is Game Time. They do have the lowest price guaranteed, and tickets, the price goes down the closer you get to game time. So make sure to check that out if you want to get in to any last-minute event. Make sure to head over to our friends at Game Time. Use that code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right, Tayler, what do you got in the cornerback room? The Patriots, they bring in one corner in Kobe Minor with the Mr. Irrelevant tag and a couple UDFAs as well. So how do you see this room shaking out for New England?
So Kobe Minor, I left off just because I haven't seen any film on him. I haven't read enough reports to sway one way or the other. I don't think it would be fair as him being Mr. Irrelevant to leave him on the roster when I have so little information. Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, locks. I have Marcus Jones. He's made it this far. They didn't add significant competition like we thought they might. So it seems like maybe Vrabel's willing to buck his trend. I mean, but we also know he is because Elliot Wolf mentioned that they will continue to use 3 safety nickel packages, which I thought might be extinct. And if you are willing to put a safety in the box, that lessens your need to have one of those types of slot corners who can play every single down for you. So those 3, I've also got Alex Austin. Everybody loves Alex Austin. You hope that maybe he can take another step in his game. But he's probably not going to be a starter. But we did see him in the slot last year. He wasn't mentioned when Elliot Wolf talked about the slot position, so I don't want to lump him into that category, but maybe he shows us some more versatility this summer. And then Isaiah Bolden and Marcellus Dial. Bolden, he's got so much physical talent. I just want to see if this coaching staff can do anything with him. With the speed, and I don't think he changes direction terribly well, but I think he could do pretty well as a zone corner because of his size and the speed and his ball skills. And then Marcellus Dial, this is mostly because, one, he was mentioned in that slot corner discussion, and also because he was a special teamer. He was a gunner last year, someone that Jeremy Springer's worked with. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't have him on the roster, but the fact that he is a significant special teams contributor for now gives him a spot on the roster for me.
I am the same exact way here. I took Minor off as well. Good camp. Mr. Irrelevant could sneak him on, but besides that, pretty chalky. Austin, Bolden, Davis, Dial, Gonzo, and Marcus Jones are my 6 corners. All right, talk to me about the safety room, bringing in Craig Woodson, who I know you wanted to talk about as well, actually, on today's show. So the floor is yours to parse out some comments on Craig Woodson, as well as where you see the safety room kind of playing out.
Yeah, so starting with Craig Woodson, I finally got some more plays on him to see where exactly he fits in this defense. One thing I'll say is I kept talking about the Syracuse game because it was the only tape I had. Turned out that was his lowest graded game, according to PFF. And when you look at the rest of the tape, it definitely wasn't an anomaly because he doesn't get picked on in coverage, especially man-to-man the way he did against Syracuse. Now, granted, Syracuse has good tight ends, and that was him in man coverage more than I was able to see in other games from the cut up. So maybe that is a weakness that was just kind of exploited because he did it more in that specific game. But you do see the range, you see the physicality, him willing to come downhill and stick ball carriers. The communication's on the tape constantly. He's the one. Sometimes you can see the frustration, and I kind of like that when the guy who's orchestrating everything, it's when you know that things are not going well. If the guy who's signaling everyone starts to get kind of pissed off, you're like, oh, there's a lot of bad happening, but the ability to get everybody on schedule is what I saw on tape. There was some fire to his game as well. I just think he's going to end up being a Devin McCourty type where he is a leader on and off the field. And like from the personality side, like we saw in the interview, he's stellar there. There's a reason that they liked him so much, not just as a player, but as a fit in their locker room. But that guy who can cover man to man, who can be that center field last line of defense for you, but also can come down, like I said yesterday, is that robber defender. And when he, has a beat on where the play is going, he'll hit that acceleration real quick, reach top speed, and he'll plant guys. So I definitely like him better. It makes more sense. I don't necessarily see why the, more experienced and veteran scouts are so high on him necessarily. But again, they've been watching him longer than I have. I was only able to see cut-ups, but I do like the pick a lot better and understand. After seeing it, I'd probably give the pick a B, like a solid B.
Okay.
So I have him making the roster, of course. Kyle Duggar's there. Jabril Peppers is there with a bit of an asterisk because it's starting to feel like maybe, again, if it weren't for last year's situation, I would have him on because I think he fits what Vrabel likes to a T. It's just that one thing that makes me wonder if they're okay with being like, hey, like we've got bodies, we can move on. Because Jabril Peppers has been a free safety primarily for the Patriots, although he wears a bunch of different hats. But Marcus Epps has been signed. He was a captain with the Raiders, is someone that Josh McDaniels seems to hold into pretty high esteem. I think he's probably going to be, especially in some of the sub packages, your main center fielder. Woodson can learn from him. He can be a tight end eraser. His role will probably be dependent on the veterans around him, I would think. And then I've got Brendan Schooler and Del Pettis because of special teams. Del Pettis is the personal protector. I don't know if that's going to be enough, though, because if Craig Woodson makes it, you could see him maybe taking over that personal protector role. It's just too soon to say necessarily. And Schooler is an all-pro special teamer, obviously makes the roster.
So no Jalen Hawkins, no Marte Mapu, if I have that correct, right?
Yeah, Hawkins, I think Craig Woodson was him trying to replace Jalen Hawkins. Maybe it'll be easier because obviously the former teammates and all that. But it wasn't like he was particularly good last year. I understood them re-signing him. Maybe it's just depth, but I don't see him being long for this roster now that Woodson's there. And Marte Mapu, just unless he shows out in camp, it'll have been 3 years of not living up to expectations. And with a new regime, he doesn't have a whole lot of rope, I would imagine. As much as I like him and think that too much has been put on his plate in the past few years, and he hasn't been maximized necessarily, I also think it's put up or shut up time. And based on what we have to go on, I just can't put him on the roster as much as I like the player.
All right. I also have Jalen Hawkins off. I do have Marte Mapu on, and I do have your boy Del Pettis off as of right now. Again, it's early yet. I am less special teams oriented than some.
Mapu over Pettis would make sense outside of special teams, though.
That's kind of where it is. Plus just the physical abilities there. Hopefully they can get something out of him. Again, it's early yet. We'll see what happens, but I can't quit Marte Mapu just yet, as many of us can't around these parts. But and I have Schooler on the roster as well. I just have him listed as specialist for the sake of discussion anyway. Even though he did play some safety last year, you wonder if they kind of try and use that a little bit this year again as well. And now before we get out of here, Taylor, tell me who you have on the roster for specialists making the 2025 Patriots.
Yeah, no real surprises here, I think. I've got Bryce Behringer as the punter, Andres Borregales at kicker, and Julian Ashby at long snapper, because you do not spend a draft pick on a long snapper if you think there is like a 1% chance that one's maybe low. 2% chance that he's not going to make the roster. But yeah, I would be stunned. Unfortunately, I think we all have an immense amount of respect for Joe Cardona as a human being, as a serviceman, what he's done for the team. Like, he's been a reliable long snapper. I can't remember
Super Bowl winner on the roster right now.
Last Super Bowl winner on the roster. I can't remember the last time they've had a bad snap that was truly – actually, no. I think they had one bad snap where Cardona took the blame for it or something like that. Like, it's one of those where it happens so infrequently, I really got to go digging. And I'm not even sure I'm right. So that stinks that he's no longer going to be on the team. But again, new regime, they don't know anybody anything. Julian Ashby seems like a good guy. Was their top rated long snapper, and it's a 7th round pick. you can get upset with it. I don't really care. You're trying to fill roster holes at that point. So, yeah, I think that we see 2 rookies in the special team roles.
Yep, same here. No changes. Again, the fact that they spent draft capital on Ashby and Borregales tells you everything you need to know. Cardona, Parker Romo out, Ashby, Borregales in, along with Bryce Behringer, and then Brendan Schooler listed on mine as well. But that's going to be your special team score. I would be shocked if it didn't happen that way. So there you have it. That's our 2025 way too early roster projection. I'm going to tweet mine out after the show. Taylor, I'm sure you'll do something similar as well as far as your roster goes. I know you already tweeted out your depth chart earlier too. So if you want to check out where we have these guys ranked, again, after the show, you can check out our social media there as well. Before we get out of here, I do want to shout out something we have coming up on the channel a little bit later on tonight. It is the post-draft party supporting cancer research for the LLS, Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, hosted by Doug Kyde and Andrew Callahan. This is all in being done for Doug and his late daughter, Hallie, who unfortunately passed last year. But they've been doing so much awesome stuff, not only here on the channel. They did a pre-draft party here on the channel. They also did one live in person last week. And Doug is attempting to raise a ton of money for LLS. So if you would like to come stop by, as you can see on screen, there's a ton of guests, including my co-host Tayler Kyles, right there in the middle with a big smile on his face from Gillette Stadium. But no, Devin McCourty, Mike Giardi, Steve Palazzolo, and Sam Modson from PFF coming by as well. Phil Perry, Mina Kimes, Michael Hurley, as well as a bunch of others. So if you got some time tonight, come on by the channel. It's going to start at 7:30, being hosted by the Herald guys and Doug and Andrew Callahan. Will be a lot of fun. And if you can, please donate to Cancer Research. They'll have a ton of information during the show as well. Again, that is the post-draft party being hosted here through CLNS, but by Doug Kyde as he continues to raise a ton of money for LLS. So on that note, Taylor, I believe that's going to do it for us. No more news of the day. We'll be back tomorrow on the channel, continuing to break down the rest of the Patriots roster haul and see where things continue to go as we continue on towards wow, the draft is now over. So now what? We got rookie mini camp, training camp, and then we're into the season. So we're getting there slowly but surely. So on that note, thanks for joining us, everyone here. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we will see you next time. Peace out, everyone. Where's my outro video? Oh, there it is. Bye.